On August 3rd, 1946, my grandfather, Louis J. Cook, opened Santa Claus Land in Santa Claus, Indiana. He loved Christmas and children and everything about it, and so this odd little town called Santa Claus, Indiana needed a theme park, an amusement park. My father was very skeptical of Santa Claus Land and its potential over time, but he came to become the park president in the 50s. In 1984, Santa Claus Land separated from George Cook's Sons in a buyout, with my father wanting to grow the park more. And so in 1984, Santa Claus Land became Holiday World. Holiday World became a fantastic park over the next 35, 36 years. A very, very small park. Santa Claus Land's attendance in 1975, the first year we measured it, was some 130,000 or thereabouts. We had commissioned a study, told us that the best Holiday World or Santa Claus Land could ever do in attendance was about 300,000. In the last year that I ran the park, in 2012, the attendance was nearly 1.2 million, which is impossible. Do you believe in miracles? Well, I do, and my family does. We lead with the heart. And a foreshadowing here, we came to Alabama and did the same thing. Could lightning strike twice? Well, it has, and it did. In 2001, after Bill Cook died, we had offers coming in for the park. People wanted to buy it. There was a number at which my brother Will and I had agreed that we would sell the park. The purchasers had met our number, and I couldn't part with it. I called Will on the phone. His heart was in the same place that mine was, that we couldn't part with the park, even though it was monetarily better in Will's interest and my interest and everyone's interest. It was part of our family. And if you're not in this amusement park business, you can't fully understand it. But an amusement park, a theme park, if it's truly loved, which Holiday World was and is, you just can't, there is no price for that piece. I couldn't sell it. So there were only 5 shareholders at that time. My parents had both transferred their shares to all 5 of the children. So you have the 5 children: eldest brother Will, older sister Christy, me, Daniel in the middle, younger brother Philip, the youngest sister Natalie. In 2002, I called Will and I said, let's do this, Will. You don't want to part with the park, and neither do I. So let's borrow the amount of money that would be necessary to pay off Philip, younger brother, and Christy, older sister. Now, I needed to get 3 of 5 to make this happen, so I had to find the swing vote. Well, the swing vote would have been my little sister, Natalie. So after I spoke to Will, I said, okay, I think I can get Natalie on board. And I did. I persuaded her. And so I'll take credit for something good that I did. In 2002, I kept Holiday World in the Cook ownership management reins. 2002 was the most explosive growth we've ever had at that park. The park went from 526,000 guests annually to 653,000 guests annually. That is a huge increase. So here we are, the Cooks again, following the heart, and then the success follows that. The love of Holiday World, it was our baby. So we spoke every day in the summer when the park was open, and once a week when the park was in winter operations, getting ready for the next season. We were very close. He was my best friend. I got a lot of great, great friends, but my brother Will was my best friend, and he's gone. I was going to go to southern Indiana and spend 10 to 12 days up there. I can't remember exactly. But normally I would go up there once or twice, perhaps 3 times a summer to check out the park and see how things are going. I love southern Indiana, It's a beautiful place. On June 13, it was a Sunday, my children and I and my sister Natalie and her husband and their children had taken a trip to French Lick, Indiana. This would be the last time I would ever speak to Will on the phone. I probably spoke to him, my best estimate is 2:30 p.m. He was at Holiday World in great spirits, a little bit aloof, or something was off. I never had a conversation with him like that. But he stayed at Holiday World that day. I now know, I've got gathered evidence of the last time he was at Holiday World, and it seems to be that he was at the park as late as 5:30-ish, which was very unusual because his normal routine on Sundays was his day off. He'd go to the Santa Claus Methodist Church with his family. They'd all go to Holiday World for lunch, and then they'd go home together and spend the afternoon. But this day was very, very unusual. Never happened. Lori and the kids had told Will, and I was later told the same, that they were going to see the play Legally Blonde in Louisville, Kentucky, which turns out to be completely false. I've only recently discovered. I know he was at Hollywood at 5:30ish. What time he got back to his house, which is a stone's throw from Hollywood, you could walk the distance, but it's probably a mile from the gates of Hollywood to his house. And I don't know exactly the time he got home. And this was, oddly enough, too, the only time Lori made him go to every play that they attended. And they'd attend 2 or 3 Broadway plays a year. So here we are in this strange circumstance, and certain things are kind of odd to me now in hindsight. At 11:30 p.m., I was in my mother's house in Evanston, Indiana. The phone rings, and Mother, I didn't answer the phone, but I heard it, and she starts yelling up the stairs, "Dan, they found Will." Lori and Will found Will floating face down in the pool when they got home. Oh my God. They would have had to found him within 10 minutes of him going underwater. He's not going to be, he's dead. You know, there's only a 10-minute window of opportunity. So if you start to think about it, you're like, okay, let's say they were out of the house at 4 o'clock to go to the play in Louisville. And they got home at 10:30 or thereabouts, according to the first account, which is, you'll find out later, is not the time they got home. That I knew right then and there he had to be dead. I was torn. I was really torn. Do I go to the house or should I stay here with my children? I'm almost certain he's passed. So what am I going to learn by going over there? Well, that was a very bad decision in hindsight, that I didn't go over there. But I chose to stay with my 2 children. My mother, then age 79, goes to my brother's house by herself. And so I sit up with massive anxiety, just trembling. I was texting all of my 3 siblings, knowing or presuming that Will was dead. And in fact, when Mother came back home, she walked in the door and said, I remember very well, "He's gone." 2 words, "He's gone." And I stayed up the whole night. I didn't know what to do. I knew he was gone. And it just shocks me. It shocks me to this day. He's gone, you know, God dang it, no. For the 6 years after Will died, I thought nothing. I thought he died accidentally. But clues kept coming to me from family and friends. Little things, lots of things, just that were, no way. That you just get to the point, me, where I have to know.
So my name is Maria Bradley, and I'm a private investigator, and I own Insight Today Investigations. And I was contacted by Dan Cook in January of 2023 about possibly investigating his brother's death, William Cook, Jr. As I began to investigate, we uncovered a lot of inconsistencies.
Mom and I go to Will's house. Now, this is only the second time I've been in Will's house in my life. In 2008, he completed this luxury home that he didn't even want to build on that road. Will was a modest man. He wanted to stay in his house on Christmas Lake. He was just fine with it, but Lori wanted this extravagant 7-bedroom house, and so he did it for her. He was a people pleaser. It was me, Mom, Lori, and her children would walk in and out, Leah and William. I didn't see Lauren that day, but Lori was crying uncontrollably, and William III, my nephew, would come over and pat Lori on the shoulder. And it was just strange because she kept repeating over and over and over again, "If only I hadn't stopped at Culver's," which is a burger place. It's in Corydon, Indiana, so the trip from Corydon to Santa Claus Holiday World is about, I don't know, 55 minutes. He's alive at 8:30 p.m. Lori says she's the very last person that I know of that spoke to Will when he was alive. That's very important. You'll see later when I create this timeline, because the accounts of where she was is vastly different. Eating at Culver's at 8:30 takes 15 to 20 minutes. Probably to eat a burger there. Another 55 minutes home. So we got about, they say, an hour and 15 from 8:30. So that puts her back at the house at 9:45-ish. The troubling thing is the actual 9/11 call goes out at 10:45-ish. I think she gathered the whole clan and rallied to create this story. And it also goes back to efforts that were made after they found Will in the pool. He was so dead. You know, they had a light or lifeline, whatever it's called, helicopter flown into town. It was all drama. It was all a play. It was all fake. It was all staged. He was so dead, my poor brother.
I got home from a coroner convention in Indianapolis that night. It was still daylight out because I was laying in bed reading a book. To me, I think it was like a little around 9, a little after 9. And then that's when I heard Lifeline go over. And I'm like, man, you know, because I'm on call. And then it wasn't, gosh, I want to say like 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later tops, they called the cell phone and said, hush, hush, meet us up here. Normally I get paged out on a radio through like the police scanners and stuff, whatever. So the call actually never came across the scanner. It was through a cell phone that nobody has access to now, to meet him up there in the field for life flight. And that was still, again, between, his staff was like right around 9 something, so daylight, but almost dark. He had tubes down his throat. They shot him up with a lot of different epinephrines for adrenaline, medicine for his diabetes, but he was already passed.
Everybody's hush-hush. You know, that day, supposedly, the 911 call came in at 10:42 p.m., but as you'll find out, the coroner, Nicole, was actually called on her cell phone privately about 8:30 p.m. to 9:15 p.m., and Life Flight had already went over her house.
There's no dispute that the forensic pathologist, Dr. Elmo Griggs, found that my brother had a traumatic head injury either at or near the time of his death. It preceded any post-mortem activity, meaning it didn't happen after he was dead. My brother was rendered unconscious, pushed in his pool, and drowned. The findings are not a lot of water in the lungs. It's not a full drowning. He was found in his stairs in 3 feet 9 inches wide of pool opening. 90% of the pool is covered with a pool cover. He's on the stairs. Next to his body, and I didn't even know this until 2020 or 2021, is a sledgehammer, which happens to match the L-shaped fracture, hairline fracture on the rear of his skull. That's the blow that rendered my brother unconscious. No findings of any incapacities or in the toxicology or anything. There were therapeutic ranges of anything. Everything, you know, I had some little bits of Valium, which I wonder whether he was taking or somebody put him in, a couple other things, and a 0.06% finding of blood alcohol level, another measurement of 0.085, but whatever. 2 beers in his system. No diabetes, no complications from diabetes, blood sugar normal, everything normal. Yeah, he had a very, very small buzz on from his beer. He knew what he was doing. He was fine that evening.
The pool was open. The pool cover in the backyard was open, probably 3 to 4 feet in the shallow end, closest to the house. And off to the right, about 3 feet from the wall, was a sledgehammer that was standing up right in the pool with the handle upright. There were 2 beer bottles that were empty sitting on the concrete before you get in the pool. We went downstairs. There was a media room that was it was a hidden media room that had, like, for surveillance, but that wasn't on. Another coroner came to the scene, and that's when Lori came there. And we questioned her, and she her demeanor was very, very calm, very not, she wasn't upset. We asked to talk to her, ask her questions, whatever, inside the house, but she sat outside with us where it happened. And she was just very cold, didn't really have any emotion. But she didn't look disheveled. She wasn't like she'd been crying or nothing, just very well put together. She said that she had cleaned up the scene a little bit. We asked about a phone, and she said his phone was upstairs. She took it upstairs. So when she brought it down, there was a timer on it, and it had already been 7 hours and some change. So that was kind of odd. I asked her where the other 4 beers were because I followed her around in the kitchen. And I looked in the trash, things like that inside the kitchen, because she had made a comment that he had bought a 6-pack. But there were only 2 empty beer bottles outside. There weren't any in the outside trash. There wasn't the other 4 anywhere. Wasn't in the fridge. Wasn't in the inside trash. She said he just got them. Which was also odd because this was a Sunday. And at that time, Indiana didn't sell alcohol on Sundays. So I'm not sure about that. On scene, between the cops and Lori, it's like nobody cared. Like, I don't know. Almost like they're all just walking around talking. Just like nothing was wrong. It was off. It was weird. I've never had a case like that. I mean, you could tell when the person is stunned at losing their husband or their wife or,
Right.
That was not normal. I know the lead CSI, ISP for Indiana, I met up with him at the morgue for the autopsy about 4 or 5 hours later. And he kind of led the doctor into, like, this is what I think it is. And the doctor's, yeah, I could see that's probably what it is. His fingers were not cyanotic. So, like, when you go into, like, a seizure or whatever, you stop getting oxygen to your fingernails and your fingers and stuff, and they will turn blue. Well, there was no sign of that. There was no sign of biting your tongue, nothing, no cuts and stuff in his mouth, no other bruises or anything on him. So, when Dr. Griggs, he opened him up, underneath his hair to his scalp, you could tell there was like a little bit of a contusion, probably about the size of a 50-cent piece on the lower right side of the head. And then when he drilled through the skull and opened the skull to investigate the brain, there was a contusion that was a hemorrhage. But outside of that, his brain was healthy. He had his lungs and everything were great, nothing wrong with his lungs. He was very healthy organ-wise, like everything about him. We knew we wouldn't be able to get a good tox reading on him because the EMTs and paramedics already pumped him full of all kinds of stuff, to try to save him. So that was pretty much inconclusive. You wouldn't really be able to know exactly. But his lungs were not that of a man that drowned, okay? I know, like, what Dr. Griggs had said and what was said during the autopsy, because I was present for the whole thing, versus what's on the autopsy report. To me, that it doesn't add up because it's not the same thing. Dr. Griggs was trying to say it was due to being diabetic, but in the report, I don't think it says that. In his checklist of his lungs and everything, it shows that, it doesn't show the amount that it would take for a person who would drown. Basically, he didn't have a seizure from being diabetic. Another thing on the scene is that his insulin pump, he took his insulin pump off, and it was sitting on the side of the pool. And he jumped to the conclusion that it was erotic asphyxiation before the autopsy. And then he told Doc that. And then that versus, he's diabetic. And they just kind of tied it together and said, oh, yeah, this is what happened.
The way a death happens is someone dies, the coroner's called in, they get pronounced dead. Then Indiana State Police, so the police comes on scene, they get the facts from the coroner, and then they basically transfer that to the pathologist that does the autopsy. So the pathologist was never given the sledgehammer in William's case. So he was not even allowed to determine what caused that skull fracture. They just told him that he was found in the pool. And so it's listed as though it was a finding, but because they didn't know what caused it, they went with the accidental drowning because he had just enough water in his lungs that would have indicated a drowning had happened. But Indiana State Police did bag the sledgehammer as evidence. So that didn't make sense. So if it's evidence, then why wasn't it given to the pathologist to consider as a possibility to a weapon or something that could have caused the skull fracture? The autopsy showing that he had a skull fracture and the same contusion was the same size and shape as the sledgehammer in the pool. It's my opinion that it's more likely that he was hit from behind and unconscious, which led him to fall into the pool. Somebody pushed him into the pool. That makes more sense to me than them going with the theory that he was holding his breath underwater, timing himself with his cell phone timer. Because she took the cell phone, so obviously she tampered with evidence, so we don't really know who set the timer on the phone. When I started to investigate the Indiana State Police report, it had said that William Cook was found naked, dead, floating in his swimming pool. The wife had came home and found him dead. She had said that she was at a play in Louisville, Kentucky called Legally Blonde, and that she left about 5:30 p.m. If she had left at that time, the play in Louisville would had already been started, so that was, a little bit of a lie. I looked into it myself, and she was not on the list of attendees for that play on that day. Nobody in the family was. So the alibi, I guess you would say, is where she was, did not check out, so that was a lie. She took the cell phone that was on the side of the pool up to the bedroom, and then at the last minute she said, oh, well, there was a timer on his phone, and I think it's because he was holding his breath underwater, and so the police just went with that. They didn't do a competent investigation, and because of that, I feel like it was like a rush to judgment, and that's how they got the accidental drowning. And there's no evidence to this day that says that his death was accidental.
The state police interviewed one person, my sister-in-law. If they would have talked to anyone else in the group, the 3 children and the boyfriend, this case would have never gotten to where it would have been. But they were misled, the state police, by the deputy who basically became the investigator. The deputy and the widow led the investigation, and the state police followed it. They framed Will. They made him look like a sexual deviant. They said he was engaging in autoerotic asphyxiation.
One part of it that doesn't add up either, she said that she was in Louisville at a game. But then she turns around and tells, on the report or whatever, that she was at a play. She's told us 2 different stories, that she called and couldn't get a hold of him. But then she also said she called and she talked to him because that's what he wanted her to do, to let him know that she was on the way home because he was going to be naked in the pool, and he didn't want the kids seeing that because apparently that's something he did a lot of. But first she said she couldn't get a hold of him. Second time she said that that she did tell him that she was on her way home. So that I do know. That came from her mouth. I just know that his swimming trunks were underneath the cover at the end of the pool, and that the pool cover did not jump track.
The state police have used a stopwatch allegedly started by my brother at 9:27 p.m. because they concluded he was holding his breath underwater. My brother was not doing that. State police stated, and this is confirmed by the deputy coroner, Nicole Wade, you'll hear from, that clock is started and ran for, 7 hours plus. It started at 9:27. The phone was upstairs in her bedroom. Lori's version, as told to the Indiana State Police, is that a first responder handed it to her because they didn't want the phone to get wet. That's the biggest bunch of malarkey I've ever heard. That phone was started by the killer at 9:27 p.m. in her bedroom. Will was already dead. That phone was not on scene when they came home. It was staged, ready to go in Lori's bedroom. And the deputy creates this concoction about this autoerotic asphyxiation. It's just pure garbage. How low can you go? You telling me that my brother, who's not incapacitated, at 9:27 p.m., he starts a stopwatch, ties himself up, knowing that in 10, 15 minutes his children and his wife are going to come home. Hello? It's such a lie. It's an absolute lie. The killer is the person who started that phone at 9:27 p.m. on June 13, leaves it in the bedroom. Lori and the kids come home 9:45, and then Lori's play begins to evolve further. The killer starts the phone at 9:27 p.m., walks back to his house. I did a walk of it myself one time. It's a very short distance. There's a way to access Will's property from the back. It takes about, on a brisk walk, you can do it in 12, even a leisure walk, 15 minutes. The killer starts the clock in Lori's bedroom at 9:27, walks out the back of Will's property and goes back to his house in Christmas Lake Village. So my brother knew the killer. Trusted the killer, drinking a beer or two with the killer, Sam Adams, that evening. And the killer betrayed Will, my family, along with Lori. And I come to discover many things about the actual person who swung the instrument to kill my brother or to render him incapacitated, to push him in the pool, to drown him, that are very disturbing. And I don't have proof of this, but I suspect that they've been having an affair for a very long period of time. I think it goes back to 1993 because he came to work at Holiday World, the deputy, in 1994, 95. They had met, Lori and the deputy had met at a Methodist church camp in the state of Indiana in the summer of probably 93 or something like that. And so I suspect and fear that there was some kind of sexual relationship that I was unaware of and Will was unaware of. And the deputy I've known for a long time, not a friend, but more than an acquaintance. In fact, the deputy and I played golf in the summer of 2013. I told him when we were playing golf, I was like, what are you doing out here with me? You know, I'm the enemy. You're going to get in trouble. No, I got thick skin. I'll be all right. And now in hindsight, I know I was under surveillance. That may sound crazy. But for, 15 years or 10 years before Will died, say from 2000 to 2010, we'd play golf once a summer, hang out a little bit, me and the deputy. And it was a bit odd because I didn't really hang out with anybody up there. But I now know I think I was under surveillance by the deputy and my sister-in-law, which is very, very disturbing. It took me a full year, 1 year, to even believe or begin to believe that my sister-in-law could kill my brother and this other person whom I know and still knew, I won't talk anymore, could have this dark, dark capacity to kill. The scene at my brother's house, the police scene of the investigation, which lasted 4 or 5 hours, pretty pathetic. They spend more time on DUIs, is released to Lori at 5:30 a.m. on June 14, 2010. At 6:30 a.m., Lori and Leah, her middle child, go to Holiday World, get the public relations person to issue a press release that hits the wires at 8 o'clock. I'm not there, Mom's not there, nobody else is there but Lori, her middle child, my cousin, who joined me here in Alabama, by the way, and the director of public relations, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. But it's very strange. Her first order of business was to get out a press release that the family believed he died from complications from diabetes. So the press release goes out. It hits Evansville, Indiana TV at like 8 a.m. They haven't even done the autopsy down there. She's in a rush to say it's complications. She has no evidence of it, but damn, she's going to make sure that she controls the narrative. This is Lori's play.
Mr. Cook died at his home last night. His family believes it was a result of complications from diabetes.
Why is it so important for her to go to Hollywood to get out a press release on causation? And my cousin questioned the necessity of, why don't we just wait and say, pending investigation. Now, I didn't know. I didn't know who the source of that 8 a.m. press release was. I saw it, but I guess me being a trusting person figured, well, surely it's an accident. But it wasn't. It wasn't an accident.
Before the autopsy was even done, the wife was on the news telling everybody that he died due to complications of diabetes, which was not the case. The autopsy says that he did not die of, complications of diabetes at all. There's no evidence of that. So that, again, is kind of questionable. Why was she allowed to give that much information to the public when it was false? And it's like they just allowed her to walk around and just navigate the whole investigation.
In latter 2022, I decided to begin a formal investigation. Remember, I had 6 years of thinking nothing, 6 years of wondering. So now we're at Christmas 2022, and I decided I'm going to take action. I got to know. And all I wanted to do, get my mother to sign the document so I could see the autopsy, praying and hoping. I'm a man of faith, maybe not the best faith at times. This has tested my faith, but I got faith. I prayed to God, please prove it's accidental, but if you don't grant that prayer, at least give me the strength to understand what happened and to move forward. And I got it, and I read it, and my worst fears were confirmed. I was like, oh my God, my brother got his head bashed in. Since the deputy and my sister-in-law led the investigation, the police had massive confirmation bias in this on them when they looked into my brother's death. And so they got a problem. It's a huge problem. And this is further confirmed by the forensic pathologist, a gentleman by the name of Dr. A. Elmo Griggs. He's done a tremendous amount of autopsies for Southern Indiana. He's on contract, 18,000 perhaps, I'm told, that there are 2 autopsies that trouble him. One is the death of William Albert Cook, my brother, and another one is the Scales case in Warwick County, Indiana. Scales is also a very prominent case of questionable actions by state, county officials, just like my brother's. The state police were kind of in charge of what they wanted, right? So they fed Griggs some things, but not everything he needed to hear, like there was a hammer in the pool. I'm told that Griggs didn't know about that, and pushed him as far as they could to get him to go with this accidental death theory that the family oftentimes the families want these kind of things, right? We just want it to go away. My brother's file for his coroner's report was not kept in Spencer County, Rockport, Indiana, where it should have been. The coroner, Barry Schulte, kept it in his house. It wasn't kept at this. It was maintained there for, 12 years, 13 years. Barry Schulte, I'm told, and Nicole will confirm this, she's his ex-wife, but she'll confirm that he did the most soft questions of Lori ever. Like, it wasn't even real, And he was the guy that got the call at 9:45 p.m., this is all from Investigator Bratcher and Nicole, that he got the call at 9:45. So it just doesn't add up. The nephew, Ross White, he is Lori's sister, Barb's adopted child. He came down for Christmas. He was in that house for 12, 14 hours. He arrived on December 22nd. He's dead at 1:00 p.m. on December 23rd, 2018. An accidental overdose. The biological family had just reunited with him several years prior to this and had the same kind of strange feelings I had. They had suspicions on the whole thing. I only connected with the Ross White's biological family in October 2023. The mother, Dawn, and the sister, Cassandra, were all like, we've always just, something just doesn't, and Dawn's even made statements to me, like Ross had made some statements prior to his death of, I now know how rich people kill others, family members, and get away with it. He was a smart kid. I didn't know him well, but I did know Ross. He knew too much, and he paid with his life, and he talked too much. The 9/11 call is fake. It's staged, just like my brother's. If you listen to it.
Central County 911, what is the location of your emergency?
1170 West Christmas Boulevard.
What's going on?
My nephew is not waking up.
Is he breathing?
I don't know. They're upstairs, and they just yelled down and said to call 911. Let me go and see what's going on.
I need help in dispatch. I have a medical. This is for Shasta. Sorry.
Is he breathing?
I'm sorry.
I'm on the phone with 911.
Okay, I need to know if he's breathing.
Oh, my God.
Is he breathing?
He's unresponsive.
How old is he?
28.
28-year-old male, not breathing. Do you know what caused this?
No.
Okay. Come on, Ross. Does he have any health conditions or anything?
Health conditions, Barbara? He's a drug addict.
This could be a possible overdose.
Recovering. We don't think it's an overdose, but who knows?
Okay.
No, I have no Narcan, Barbara. Why would I have Narcan in my home? No.
This is a possible overdose. I did. Okay.
His color's horrible.
My partner is getting them paged out. I've got a few questions for you, okay?
Okay. It's my nephew.
It's another Laurie play. The deputy is the first one in the house. He's in a Murphy bed. There's just all kinds of terrible, terrible, wrong things going on with Ross's death. It's just, he was murdered. He was murdered. He was in the way. Everybody in Spencer County that's in the know told me, oh yeah, he went out like a rock star. He died of this, that, and the other thing. He had every drug in his system. But that's not what the state police based their findings on. They based their findings on a toxicology report of questionable origin that occurred in latter 2019, a year after he died, or January 2020. And Rachel Gentry, then coroner, had that third toxicology report from Lab 2 at her house. That tox report, Layla Thayer, who I spoke with, is the current coroner. Toxicology report 3 on Ross White was in her house. She resigned Spencer County coroner, elected office in September, October 2020. My brother's file is at Barry Schulte coroner from 2010 house. And this mysterious Tox 3 is not in the official records of Spencer County at Rockport. It's at Rachel Gentry's house, who resigned in October 2020. And they got a problem, big problem on a Ross White case, because I'm betting that Tox 3 is fake. Somebody saw a problem with toxicology 1 and 2 on Ross, that it was so over the top that he couldn't have done it. He went out like a rock star, that you couldn't humanly ingest whatever it was on Tox 1 and Tox 2. I've never seen it. I'm not entitled under the law to see it, but I would like to see it if somebody would show it to me. But what's very troubling is Rachel Gentry takes Tox 3 back to her house. The state police don't use Tox 1 and Tox 2 for a year plus until they get Tox 3. Who transported Tox 3? How did it move from Lab 1 to Lab 2? These are questions I want answered. And I think it'll point right back to the killer, the same person that placed that phone in my brother's bedroom and started that clock at 9:27 p.m. Spencer County, Indiana has a very corrupt deputy who has misled the state police. And now they've doubled down, because they doubled down when Ross died, covered for that, making an accident. If you look at the Ross White police report, everything on there is wrong, deliberately. His name is wrong, date of birth. I talked to the state police twice. I've sent them a bunch of documents. They kind of took an interest. I think they know it's a homicide, but they're not going to do anything unless my family gets on board. Are you proud of this? Well, this is an F. You got less than 60% right on there. Place of death, Lincoln City, Indiana. No. They know. They know. Name wrong. Everything's wrong. It's fraud. Ross is dead because my family didn't do anything. I harbor guilt about that. I talked to Dawn and Cassandra and other family members of Ross, the biological family, and I say, I feel guilt about this, that we would have fixed this. Barbara, the adoptive mother, Lori's sister, threatened Dawn, saying, you better not go get the autopsy because you're going to get in trouble and you better leave Indiana right now. I'll show you a text of it. Very threatening that I obtained from third parties, but it's from Barb. And it's scary stuff, man. And the police are doing the same thing to me. Dan, you'll get in trouble if you keep looking into this. What does that mean? Well, you've been harassing people. I haven't harassed anybody. They're used under the auspice I'm harassing people. All my requests to the coroner have been polite and courteous, and they're coming after me.
Barbara White adopted my son when he was 6 months old. My son's adopted mother was the sister to Lori Cook. I received a phone call from someone informing me that something had possibly could have happened with my son. I was told that somebody possibly could have murdered him, and hung up because I thought it was all a fake. And then after thinking about it, I remember my son, several conversations with him where he talked about that woman and how much he disliked her and was very adamant about the fact that he didn't like her. He was sober for a long time. He wasn't looking forward to going down there at all. He couldn't stand the woman. He did like his cousins, however, and he didn't want to go down there. And he told me, he says, Mom, I'll talk to you after Christmas when I get back. And that's the last time I talked to him. I think she murdered him because he knew too much about what happened to his Uncle Will. He had told me several times that he couldn't stand the woman, and he was adamant about the fact that she probably killed him. I didn't take it none too serious because maybe I thought maybe he was just talking or something. If my son told me that she probably killed Will, he had to have told other people, you know. They said he died of a drug overdose, but he was in recovery and hadn't been on drugs in years. I suspect Lori and I suspect Barbara of covering it up. Why would she not talk to me? She even threatened me, actually, that the criminal charges were going to be pursued if I kept trying to get the autopsy report and didn't leave things alone. Why was I not allowed to know that? And I wanted it for no other reason, just to have closure. I didn't go to the funeral. I couldn't stand it. I didn't want to deal with the fact that he died, and I still haven't dealt with it. Now that I found out he's murdered, it takes it to a whole nother fucking level of intensity. My whole family has been destroyed by this. They're divided. Some of my children believe it. Some of my children don't believe it. I can't sleep at night. Every time I leave my house, I think somebody's going to kill me. And it just tore me apart. I'm not a strong person anyway. We reunited, and we'd been close ever since then. We had talked every day about everything. He was my son. I mean, he wanted his mother just as much as I wanted him. I mean, it's so obvious as to what happened, and it breaks my heart and devastates me at the same time to think nobody will do anything.
So we have a house of dead bodies, and we have 2 dead bodies in one location, and she called the 911 call in for the nephew. And then William's case, the 911 call's been deleted. And then it's like the 2 deaths, it's just they're similar but yet not. Like the police took the nephew's phone, which had nothing to do with the investigation. Did not take William's phone, which would have had everything to do with the investigation. So to me, it seems as though it was covered up, and just basically she was allowed to lead the investigation. She went around with the detectives and pointed out, oh yeah, well, he did this with the timer on the cell phone at the last minute. But there's no evidence that they can give to me that shows that his death was an accidental death. The nephew's death was classified under a different name, a different address. There was 2 toxicology reports that was filed, but in the police report it said that he overdosed on fentanyl, and then another one had said that they tested the drugs that they found and fentanyl came back negative. So I don't know how they had said that he died from a fentanyl overdose when it was tested and it was negative.
People who are from little towns, God bless you, I can relate. They kept it out of the Spencer County papers that way. Well, here's what they're going to say. It's false. Well, we did it to protect poor Lori who suffered. No, they did it to protect Lori because she's a murderer. The deputy who killed my brother was the same deputy first on scene in the Ross White case. Ross White was poisoned. Will was poisoned. My father may have been poisoned. She's a serial killer. She's a serial killer. I know she killed Ross. I know she killed Will. I think she killed her mother and father. They died 6 weeks apart. Her mother died in November 2001. Her father died early January 2002. 6 weeks apart. They both got life insurance monies. And it's mysterious. They're only 72 and otherwise good health. And I can't get a clear answer as to the cause of death or either. I'm told cancer. I'm told stroke. I'm told heart attack. I just can't get a clear answer. But their symptoms are kind of similar to use of a poison. I looked this stuff up on the dark web, like sodium nitrate or something. Knocked them down, collected money. Now she's eliminated her two parents, who in the summer prior, I'm told by my mother, that Paul Morris, her father, had told Lori to shape up or Will might leave her. You don't say that to Lori. Paul lost his life. Paul lost his life in January 2002. Helen lost her life in, Thanksgiving 2001. They're from West Lafayette, Indiana, which is 4 or 5 hours north of my house in Indiana, in southern Indiana. Everybody's dying. When they go down to visit southern Indiana, you go to Lori's house, you die. You die. Will died. Her parents died. Ross died. That's 4. That's 4. Look at the statistical probability that it doesn't add up. It's so mathematically improbable. It's mathematically possible. Everybody goes to southern Indiana, Lori's house dies. There's another one too, but there's 2 more. I think she's a serial killer. I know I'm 5 or 6. She missed me. I think she wanted to get me 2, then possibly 7. But on the 7th one, I can't. The son I talked to, he doesn't want to accept it or think about it. But I think I'm right on that too. I fear that if I could find out this, whatever her and the deputy have been poisoning people with to set them up, that there'd be a common thing there. But I don't know because I'm not an expert in this. But she's a serial killer. And that's what my investigation has proved, unfortunately. Now, eventually, I don't know if you can keep killing everybody that gets in the way. I was starting to fear for my life, but I guess it's so out there. If they killed me now, surely someone would look into it. Please. I'm not sure they would. It was kind of known, or I knew, and Will and I knew, but he told the CPA without telling me that she asked, Will, what would happen if you died today? He says, Dan will come back from Florida and run it. And that's a vote of confidence. He never said that to me, but that's what I did. So I took over the role as president. The company was now owned by Lori or the estate of Will, essentially Lori, 60%, and me, 40%. And so just a mere, 2 to 3 weeks after Will is dead, Lori comes into my office and says, we've decided that Leah's going to be president. And I'm like, well, she's only 20 years old and Will's only been dead 2 or 3 weeks. Can we just throttle that down a little bit? Slow down? But Lori gets her way. Lori gets her way. And so I pushed back a little bit. And then there was also another thing that caused a rift between me and Lori. We were okay for the first 5 months, but it just kept getting worse and worse. And I realized that I could not be business partners with Lori. Will had died, and the protection Will had provided to the family from Lori was gone. My business partner was gone, and now Lori was my business partner. And things were getting very scary very quick. Family employment policy that Will had never presented to his wife and children required that his children work outside the business for a couple of years before they just walked into Holiday World. You could argue the pros and cons of it, but it was something Natalie, Will, and I had all agreed to. So there was a mandatory buy-sell upon the death of one of us that the shares get bought out by the other party. In 2008, in the shareholders meeting, Will had recited a share price, which was correct at the time, for 3 parties to own the park. Well, all of that changed when Will and I bought out Natalie. It's almost like you have a stock, and if you've ever heard of, splitting the shares, just because you own twice as many shares. Will's wealth or my wealth didn't increase or change by virtue of that transaction. The park's value didn't magically inflate. Lori uses this stock price to create a purchase price to me of $32 million. Checkmate. It's not the correct number, and I didn't have access to those funds. Truth of the matter is, when Will and I bought out Natalie, we couldn't get bank financing to pay her off. So we had to take notes, individual notes, to pay off Natalie. Natalie got some millions of dollars out of the company, but Will took a greater share and I took a smaller share because I could be a minority shareholder with Will, but I was naive. I don't know. I didn't expect him to die in the next year, but he did. The price that we paid Natalie matched exactly what the shareholder price. That was freely negotiated. $18 million she got. A lot of money. A lot of money. Now, I didn't even know. I wasn't thinking about that share price. So this thing is leveraged against me in the worst way. Dan, you owe me $32 million. Holy jippers. Oh, my God. Geez. $32 million. And the worst part of all, okay, that's the wrong number. But even the number that I was using, which was 2009, which was a correct usage of the formula, still puts us at $27 million. That's a big number. It's $9 million too high. And this one is the worst. Cook Funding Partnerships was an entity created in 2002. The purpose of Cook Funding Partnerships was to have life insurance to reduce the burden that would be placed upon the park if one of us died. So in 2008, we had $14 million. Natalie had a policy for 14, I had a policy for 14, and Will had a policy for 14. That was paid. Those premiums were paid from 2002 to 2009. 7 years. $300,000 worth of premiums, plus or minus, pretty close. All for Cook Funding Partnership, which would reduce the acquisition burden. But that's not the way it played out. And here is the huge problem, you see. Unbeknownst to me, on November 11, 2009, Will and Natalie and Lori did something very, very bad without my knowledge. I don't know if Natalie knew about my policies, but I do know she knew about Will's policies. The Cook Funding Partnerships, which belonged to me and Will, were transferred to Lori. She got $14 million of life insurance on my brother. And Natalie, my younger sister, took a collateral assignment on those funds. Now, that's wrong. It's very wrong, because that money is supposed to go as a credit on that buyout, but that credit has now disappeared. $14 million has gone straight to Lori. Lori's paid off Natalie. I'm stuck owing Natalie $5 million. And who controls the company now? Who doesn't owe Lori owes nothing to Natalie. And guess what? November 1, or right after she gets a $10 million life insurance, she's calling the board of directors meeting. Guess what's going to happen? She's going to cut me off, squeeze me out. It gets so much worse because the same date that Lori took over as owner and beneficiary, all of that Cook Funding Partnerships, Will sign documents transferring my $14 million to his wife. But it gets even worse because on April 23rd, 2010, a mere 6 weeks before my brother is murdered, she does get Will, I say Lori, she gets Will to execute and transfer $4 million of my life insurance, and I never knew. How did I never know? So she holds life insurance on my life for no reason. There's absolutely no reason except greed or something. Just evil. I feel as though Will and I were both targeted, and if she had an opportunity in the summer of 2010, she would have murdered us both. And that chills me and deeply. But she didn't. She didn't get me. Lori accepted as owner and beneficiary my policy and Will's policy. Isn't that like stolen goods or something? Like you just say, oh, I'm just owner. No, you take over ownership. There's duties, You can't just say, oh, well, this used to belong to Dan. He was the beneficiary. I'm owner now. To hell with him. Don't you think you should tell me? There's not a single piece of paper. There is no documentation. that I agreed to any of this, because I didn't. I'll tell you why Will transferred those policies, because his wife nagged the hell out of him. And he's a people pleaser, so he betrayed me. And he thought he'd fix it when I'd never know. But he didn't know that Lori's play was about to develop on him. Will deliberately didn't pay the $10 million policy in November 2009 on his life. After he transferred it to Lori, he was trying to get rid of it. He never failed to pay those premiums. In 7 years, he never missed one. But after he transferred it to Lori, he didn't pay it because he wanted that policy to go away, and it had gone away. Why did they pay on that claim? It was so far out of premium range. I've never heard of an insurance company paying 6 months after grace period. Oh, sure, here's your $10 million. What is going on? Somebody may have signed a release on behalf of the partnership, which they'd have no authority to do, and they should have told me. If I'm right, and I'm probably going to be right, I fear I'm going to see a release on behalf of my partnership of some $10 million. That's fraud. That's fraud. I got PTSD from all of this. You know, I'm getting better. I got therapy. I'm not ashamed to say it, and I'm getting much better. I had a blow up on Facebook that helped me a lot, because I just wanted to scream from the mountaintop, because nobody believes me, but it's true. Will was murdered. Lori did it. The deputy was the accomplice, and it's just too hard for people to believe, as it was me for a year. And people are behind the curve, and everybody, oh, Dan's crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm right. I'm true. I'm telling the truth here. Documents, people, evidence. You know, they're going to hear from a lot of people. But there's more out there, but they're scared. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved, because here it is, Dan, all alone, and here you got the Holiday World empire. No, but I don't want to get involved. There's people out there beyond Nicole. They just don't want to talk. They're scared of Lori. I'm not scared of Lori. I hate Lori. She's an evil person. She took my brother's life, stole $14 million of life insurance, stole Holiday World, framed me, framed my brother, stolen legacies, kicked my mother out of Holiday World. I mean, the things she's done are mortal sins. I just, what, a 7, 8? Came down to Florida to hunt me down, was going to kill me too. I mean, at some point, your head wants to explode. My head wants to explode from all of this. And so, yeah, the investigation is ongoing, and we're not stopping. I got a ton of stuff coming, but short and long, of late, I've been threatened by the state police to stop it or I'd get in trouble. The coroner doesn't answer any of my open records requests. I've been shut down. The investigation has been shut down because they don't want the truth to come out. Stuff I'm entitled to receive. I'm facing a juggernaut. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's a wall, man, because the truth is so scary. Careers are on the line. It can be proven, but I need someone with integrity within the state offices to recognize what's going on here with the investigation. I think you've got this Holiday World thing and the big elephant in the room that distorts view. Forget the park, forget everything. My brother, our son was murdered. She did it. Do something. I'm hurt. You're hurt. You're hurt. You're hurt. We're going to let evil take over? I'm sorry that this occurred. I don't know why she made these choices. They're very bad choices you made, Lori. Speaking of her now, you made bad choices, Lori. Financially, you would have been better off instead of you taking over Holiday World. Lori would have been better off just letting Will run it, but she doesn't even begin to understand how things work in the world. The Queen took it all over, and the Queen's got it. Well, Queen, you know what? When you take over a loving property like Holiday World, you need to care for it. You can't just turn it over to others, and that's what's happened, and it breaks my heart. I can't go in there. It makes me sick. I've been in there once in 13 years. Hell, I couldn't go into Indiana for 10 years. I couldn't drive across the state line. I just couldn't do it. I've told very close childhood friends, oh, Dan, you're crazy. No way. That's your first reaction. It's a normal human reaction. This is somebody you've had dinner with. I mean, for years and years and years. How could she kill Will? Well, she did. The court of public opinion is way against this, but it wouldn't be if I had family support on this. If I could get Mom and Christy and Natalie to talk truth and to just accept that this is going to come out. It's coming out. And I don't enjoy it. I don't want a lawsuit. I want my brother, you know. But when you can't get criminal justice and you can't get any other kind of justice, I'm left with monetary justice, you know. I don't want it, but should she keep it? I don't know. I don't think so. It's so wrong. Kill my brother, steal the life insurance, steal Holiday World? No. No, 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 no. That money belongs to the partnership. That money belongs to the family. You can't do that. And you knew about it when you did it. You hid it from me in plain view. It's right there to discover. Without much of a family support of seeking to have something like this, which is, to me, clearly foul play, or the family just wants it labeled accidental, the police go with accidental. I understand Lori's children's desire to just think or believe or tell the police that it's accidental. I can't imagine thinking that mom murdered dad and how painful that is, right? So without family support, mom just doesn't want to admit it. Natalie doesn't want to look at it. I had sent her the autopsy. Well, what do you think about the autopsy? I haven't had time to read it. You're not willing to read the autopsy, or you haven't had time because you don't want to look. What Natalie has done is go behind my back. She's intimidated witnesses, told the state police the Bill Cook family doesn't want this investigated. It's arguably destroying any efforts I've made so that the police just say, well, Dan's the only one out of everybody. So I have to take all this, heat, my lack of justice for Will, And so mom and my older sister, Christy, are kind of just, we just don't want to know. So you get this strange family dynamic of Bill Cook family not wanting it investigated, Lori Cook family just absolutely denial, probably. Maybe they know but don't want to admit it, but whatever. I know my family side is we just gonna ignore it. I can't do that. We've had so many breakthroughs and so many setbacks. It's been up against a wall, asking for documents you're entitled to receive, but they never come. Run around, it's over here, it's over there, you don't want to do this.
I am not family, but I am a friend of the family's, and I personally think that Dan's onto something because it might not necessarily be murder per se, but I know for a fact that the police were doing things that weren't necessarily correct. I went and visited police stations, fire departments, government buildings, also tried to talk to the coroner. Everybody was very standoffish. They were almost to the point where they were rude but polite. It was, why do you want this? Who's asking? Then shut me down. But it's public records. I was doing everything I'm supposed to do, and I'm a citizen just like everybody else is, and I wanted public information. And it was almost like they were stopping me. Everybody that had any kind of involvement in it, they were very formal, like, we don't want you to have this, or there's something we're hiding, or why do you want that? I mean, they were just all kind of like almost hostile. You could tell that they were all kind of irritated, specifically to do with Will. But it's like, did you mess up on like a clerical error, or do you have something actually to hide? Because why is every person upset? I was going to see State Trooper Gardner, and before, I believe he was just working for Santa Claus, Indiana Police Department, and I traveled around and tried to get in contact with this man the entire time because I wanted the police report, and I had to get it from him, not from a government building or from the original police station. I had to get it from him. I went literally all over the state trying to find him, and whenever I finally did, they stopped me at the door, which was a government building, and they're not allowed to do that. He was so angry. He was spitting on me. Who's asking? Why do you want it? What are you doing this for? The reason why he was angry is because he didn't fill out the proper paperwork correctly. He was just very upset. He never did give it to me. I had to go to somewhere else. I mean, I could have got it somewhere else, but they told me everywhere I went to get it from him for some reason. Where I was staying was like a La Quinta. The entire time I was there was a white four-door SUV, like probably early 2000 models, and it had a headlight out, and it was very like, you could tell that it was that car because it didn't have any tint on the windows. It had a sticker on the back. It has, like a little dog and like a family picture on the back. And so I was like, it's crazy that I keep on seeing this car. And I'm like, is that car following me? I noticed that every night that I would get up, that car would pull away every night.
I don't know how to liken it. There's plenty of movies about this kind of corruption. I hate to think of my home county, the place I was born and raised, that these kind of things would go on. And it's a small portion of the people, but again, they were just misled. I forgive them. Even though it's completely wrong and they should wake up now to what I brought them, they don't want to. They just want, because of the lack of cooperation by the Bill Cook family, because Natalie and Mom and Christy are just going to sit on the sidelines. So I'm a one man with 20 people who believe in me. That's terrible, man. You know, that's a big problem. But again, over time, I think that'll change. And there are people who know it, who coming out of the woodworks. And there's people out there who saw what happened that night who are like, wait a second, she's got her makeup on, she looks good, she was in the pool saving Will's life. It's all lies. It's such lies. Nothing adds up. Nothing adds up. So we are going to keep going. I'm going to write to the Solicitor General, the state police, Governor of Indiana. I had lunch with him a year and a half ago, and a nice, fine gentleman, invoking everything I can to get justice for Will. So there's been a heck of a lot of setbacks, but I see breakthroughs coming ahead. And that, in essence, largely the civil lawsuit is my mechanism to get that, because I'll be able to do depositions and discovery on things I can't get through normal, peaceful processes that should be answered. All I was seeking was to prove that Will, first was died accidentally, that went away. Then to knowing that he was murdered, what happened? And then you get this thing like, wait a second, she stole from me too. I lost Hollywood and I left, I got kicked out of Indiana. Not on my terms, I took down a settlement, a buyout. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to stay in the company. It wasn't the amount of money it should have been. I had to pay off Natalie on my own out of this. The irony of all that is, of the 5 children, and I'm not poor, pitiful me, I'm still a blessed man, but of the 5 kids, Will's dead. He paid the biggest price. Monetarily, I'm in last place. Poor Dan. Well, again, I'm still blessed, but you got to understand that Natalie got far more. Christy and Philip wound up with more. And I got a beautiful park in Alabama, and I'm a beautiful man. So don't cry for me. But do understand that there was a lot of unfairness in all this. And I'm going to bring everybody that's listening to me back to number 1. Will lost his life. That's the biggest one. And you know what? If I could get justice, I don't give a damn about the civil lawsuit. I'd throw it in the trash. Put her in jail. I'm serious. I don't want the money. I just want her gone because she did it. I will not stop until I am dead. I won't until I'm dead, unless there is some sort of justice for my brother. I will not stop. I've told my family that. I said, just please don't get in my way. Don't undermine my efforts. I'd like you to support me, but if you're not going to support me publicly, at least don't undermine my efforts, whatever that means. And so the quest for justice is hopefully, I'd say 2 or 3 years, but maybe sooner with the civil lawsuit, maybe never. If it's never, it all disappears when I go in my casket. I'm not looking forward to that. But I can. That's where it's going to end. And at least I'll have told the story, because it's true what I'm talking about here. It's all true. Alabama Adventure and Splash Adventure, a success story I'm so proud of. It's the opus of my life in terms of business. That we did it. The Cook family business model came down here and took a park, Alabama Adventure, formerly known as Visionland. The Cook family bought in 2014 a relic park that was in the graveyard with a bad reputation in what some lists describe as the most dangerous city in America, Bessemer, Alabama. And we're a success. This is our 11th season here. I'm so proud of it. And Will and I, in about the 3 months before his death, March of 2010, I was talking about expansion. I said, let's go down to the south. I look at maps, it's not real market analysis, but just looking, where are parks? I said, well, okay, you got 5 million in Alabama, 15, 16 million in Georgia, Mississippi. There's people down there. There's no park because nobody has had the skills to run it. A little bit of ego on the family, and he was all about it. I said, let's do it. Oddly enough, our dream came true, not in the way I wanted, but in a way that happened. It was almost mandated to me out of pride. I bought a park to show that the Cooks would not be kicked out of the amusement park, theme park, water park business. I'm so proud of Alabama Adventure. I'm a blessed man. I'm so proud of the park. My family, all families have problems. This is unusual thrown our way, but I love them all, my mother and my 2 sisters. And I miss my 2 brothers. I haven't talked about Philip. I loved him, and what a tragedy. He had a heart attack in 2013. So I lost 2 brothers. My mother lost 2 sons. That's a lot of pain, But when you realize that your brother was murdered for money, it makes you sick. Whether it's $1, $5, the number doesn't matter. It's priceless, Just like the park Holiday World. There's no value. I couldn't trade it. We're going to go as far as we can with this because, you know, truth is on our side. And it'll end, hopefully, soon. I'm living. I'm going to live my life regardless of the pursuit for justice. I'm not just going to eat and sleep and, you know, breathe. I'm going to live. And my mother inspired me to do that. She asked me, you know, because I was really having trouble dealing with people. I just didn't trust them. I was still going to work in communication, but not like I've been for, God, I've always worked, man. You know, this is the worst year of my life. I guess I'm a blessed man. Well, the worst year of life was probably the year Will was murdered, but bringing this all back up made this the worst year of my life. But, you know, I guess in my life, if this is the worst year, it's been a pretty good life. And so I'm going to smile and live. And my mother said that to me, and I take great inspiration from her. And she's got strengths I don't have because I couldn't do what she's doing, pretend it never happened.